Hello, good people of the internet. My name's Jed of Your Guitar Academy. Today, we're going to be showing you how to sound like John Frusciante with these easy steps. So the things we're going to be talking about today are John Frusciante's playing style and his tone. And here I'm using a Tone X, which has a Fender Twin reverb sound. So it's kind of like a bassline tone that we're going to be using. And you can hear it's very dry. So it's kind of, if the amp was set with everything on 12. And then we're going to manipulate that sound with some of these pedals. There's kind of three main sounds I think he has. So if you think of a tune like Under the Bridge, he's playing with that bass line tone of clean guitar sound, maybe with a little bit of compression. So we've got those arpeggiated chords. And then there's another level, so there'd be another tone maybe where he's got a slightly distorted sound. So we'd use maybe some drive. So that might be a little bit too much distortion there, so turn that down. So it's kind of like a funky, slightly overdriven tone. Maybe again with some compression. Let's hear what that sounds like. And then I've noticed occasionally Frusciante will go into this realm of psychedelia, and he's sort of embodying the spirit of Hendrix. So we've got a Walrus Audio fuzz here, which really takes the sound up. Now I think with this one that we need a little bit of reverb. I think the other sounds are kind of dry, so there's no reverb at all. But on this one, it's nice to just have that kind of sustain out. Yeah, just like a little fade. Feels good. It's so hard not to make guitar faces with this pedal, man. It's just... Cool. That one's a lot of fun. So we get a funky thing going. Turn the drive up a little bit on this Eastwood. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Let's try it with the fuzz and see what happens. That's a lot of fun. That's cool. I found when I was using the fuzz, I tended to want to go with those longer notes, and I think that's just the nature of it. So if you... I think with that, because we've got the compression going as well, it's going to sustain for as long as you want. So... You hold that note forever, yeah. Yeah, and I think with Frusciante, he's embodying the spirit of Jimi Hendrix with all of this stuff, I think. With the R&B style chordal playing, and then that heavy end psychedelic stuff, it's just Jimi Hendrix all over. If you're interested in looking at any of this stuff in more detail, there's some courses and we'll have the links below, so check those out. So a big component of John Frusciante's playing is that kind of R&B style, Jimi Hendrix-esque Curtis Mayfield playing. So it's like bar chords, but with your thumb over the top. So we've got other fingers freed up for that kind of playing. So over that A major chord, we can hit some other notes in it, like the ninth with our pinky. Do the same thing with the sixth on the B string with our pinky again. And then go from the major third to the fourth on the G string. So maybe if we took... So I'm going from an A major here, so an A major bar form, but with the thumb over the top, for 2 bars, I think that was, and then up to a D major. Same exact bar form with the thumb over the top. So those are the kinds of things you can play around with. Now what I'm doing there is just some little ornamentation on those higher strings. So I'm also arpeggiating the chord. And then the same thing on the D chord. As opposed to if we just played it like a normal bar chord, you can hear how much that's adding, having that thumb over the top. Another thing Frusciante does is he'll use a bar form, but he'll take out all the notes in the middle. So if we're playing an A major, he'll just play the bass note and the third of the chord. So in this case, we've got an A on the low E string and a C sharp on the G string. So if we took the key of A major and played the diatonic chords in that key and improvised, you'll hear it starts to sound like a Chili Pepper song. So if we do something like this, let's get that tone going. I could play around with that for days. That's really fun. And you start to kind of, your ear will take you in a direction and you'll hear chord progressions. So you can come up with your own kind of Chili Peppers style progression if you wanted to. Yeah. So there's two chord shapes I'm using to play just the bass note and the major third or the minor third in the chord. So we've got this major form, which is this. So if we're playing a major chord, we've got, we're going to be a semitone up on the G string. So this is the 5th fret and the 6th fret. Then if we play a minor form, we'll be on the same fret. So the E string and the G string here, this is a B minor, is both 7th fret on the low E string and the G string. And those are the only two shapes that we're using. So we've got a major, then a minor, then another minor, and then we're back to that major form, and we've got another major, and then a minor, and then a minor again, and then we're back at the top. So it's all the diatonic chords of the major scale. Yeah, nice. So with a lot of riffs that John Frusciante is playing, he'll be using chord forms from the Cage system. Now we've got courses on the Cage system if you're interested in learning about that more in depth, and the links will be below the video. I think when I think about riffs John Frusciante's playing, the most common shapes are probably the C caged shape, the E caged shape. There's probably some A caged shapes in there as well. I think those are the most common. So the most common cage shapes John Frusciante's using are going to be the C shape, the E shape, and the A shape. Again, with that R&B kind of style. Now I'm using a G shape there, which I think he probably does. But the way I'm using the G shape is more soloing than chordal, so. And here I'm just going between an F major, so this is an F major C shape chord, to a A major E shape. I'm going to make a loop of that again, so so that's changing between, we've got F major, so you could play that as any cage shape if you wanted to. So you could do an A form of it, or a G form. G's pretty uncomfortable, but you could do it. Or E shape, but in this case I'm using a C shape for the F and an E for the A, and they're really close to each other, so you don't have to move your hand around too much. So on that first chord you hear, pinky on the 8th, and then your thumb sits right there on the low E string. So I think that's an advantage to learning about the Cage system, is you can sit in one place on the fretboard without moving around all over the place. Because if I was going to play that same progression with just the E shape, I'd be down here or up here on the guitar, and then to find the A shape as an E form, I'd have to go to the middle of the guitar. So that's one advantage of doing that. Cool. So another aspect of Frusciante's playing is that kind of slightly overdriven, funky thing that you'd hear in a song like Can't Stop. Now, I heard him talking about it, and I think the technique here is he's he said he's hitting all the strings, but only one is ringing out. So, for example, it's a very percussive style. And you also get the kind of rhythmic, funky thing with all the other muted strings. Now, what I'm doing there is I'm using my left hand to mute all the other strings. So as I press my index finger down, so I'm pressing my index finger down on the 5th fret of the G string. And then I'm using, what am I using here? My thumb is muting the low E string. My ring finger and pinky are muting the A and the D string. And then I think it's the rest of my index finger is going to mute the B and the E string. So you're going to come down with a hard strum, hit all the strings, and if you're successful, just the G string will ring out. And that rule applies to all the strings. So if you change to the D string, you've got to find a way of using your left hand to mute all the other strings. And you'll know you're successful if you just get that one note ringing out. If you're unsuccessful, it might sound like this. You want to avoid that. Yeah, you want a clear, concise one note. You can do the same thing with partial chords. So you could play like an E9 or an E7. But maybe just play the top 3 strings. Exact same technique there. So I'm muting the low 3 strings with some part of my left hand. In this case, I'm using my middle finger. And I'm just letting the top 3 strings ring out. I'm also doing some left hand muting. So I'm hitting the chord, then I'm releasing my ring finger, but only to the point where it's going to mute the strings. So instead of taking my finger off completely, which would sound like this, releasing it enough so that I'm then muting the strings afterwards. So we've got, you can hear that little taka in between. So you got, and you can play around with that stuff. In fact, let's make a loop. So great. Maybe too much, but yeah, that's something you can play around with. So get like a funky thing going. So if you have a loop like that, you can use the same technique to play a solo or improvise with. So here it's just an E7. So I'm using like E minor pentatonic. Those 2 shapes in the middle, I think that's like 3 and 4. Is that right? Yes. Shape 3 and shape 4 of the minor pentatonic. To me, it sounds better with the compression. This kind of lifts it up. Yeah. You can drive the neighbours nuts for hours with that. So we've covered a lot today to do with John Frusciante's guitar tone and his playing styles. If you want to look at any of these concepts in more depth, there'll be links below the video. Thanks very much. Looking forward to seeing you in another video.
Massive thank you from me and the rest of our wonderful tutors for watching this video. If you do want to check out another video, another playlist, you can click right over here. Otherwise, if it feels like the right time for you and you're ready to give it a go, our Guitar Club link is right up here. You can get a 14-day free trial and you'll get access to our complete courses, our amazing community, and everything you need to properly upgrade and start loving the process of learning the guitar. I'll see you later.